Mark was not the kind of person who liked shopping in the noisy markets of the frontier colony, but that evening he found himself walking past rows of strange cages and stalls. The colony was far from Earth, built on rough land where traders from many worlds came to sell exotic goods. Mark usually ignored the sellers calling out to him, yet one small cage caught his eye. Inside the cage lay a pale creature, thin and unmoving. Its scales were white with a soft pink shine, and its wings were folded tight against its body. At first, Mark thought it was just another lizard, but when he stepped closer, he noticed the creature's long neck, sharp claws, and the faint curve of horns on its head. His breath caught in his chest. It was a dragon, but not like the fiery beasts from stories. This one looked sick, its body covered with barnacle-like growths that seemed to press deep into its skin. The seller, a rough-looking man with a thick beard, noticed Mark staring and gave a laugh. That one? Worthless. Albino dragon, weak as a bird. Barnacles sucking the life out of it? Good for nothing except a laugh. Mark tilted his head. Is it alive? The creature gave a faint twitch of its tail, as if to prove it was still breathing. Its eyes, pale silver and dull, opened just a little. When its gaze met his, Mark felt something stir inside him, though he could not explain why. The seller smirked. You want it? I'll give it to you for the price of a broken chair. Take it as a joke, boy. Show it to your friends, make them laugh. Mark had no plan to buy a dragon that looked like it was on the edge of death. He had only come to the market to buy simple supplies, not to waste money on a sick animal. Yet something about those eyes made him pause. They were tired, but behind that tiredness was a spark, like a small flame that refused to die. He sighed and reached into his pocket. How much? The seller grinned, thinking he had fooled another foolish boy. 2 credits. That's all. Not even enough to buy a decent meal. Mark handed over the money without another word. The cage was pushed toward him, heavier than it looked. The dragon did not fight, nor did it roar. It simply lay there, breathing slowly, as though every breath cost it effort. Walking back to his small home at the edge of the colony, Mark wondered why he had done it. He told himself it was for a joke, something to tell his friends about. Maybe they would laugh and say he was crazy for buying a useless dragon. But deep inside, he knew it was not really about the joke. He could not leave the creature there to die, chained and mocked by strangers. When he reached home, he placed the cage in the corner of his workshop. The room was filled with tools, spare parts, and scraps of metal from his repair work. Mark fixed machines for a living, but tonight he faced a living being instead of broken wires. He opened the cage carefully. The dragon did not move, though its eyes followed his hands. Up close, the barnacle growths looked even worse. Some were hard like stone, others soft and cracked, leaking a strange liquid. The creature's wings were thin, almost transparent, and its body trembled when it tried to shift. Mark crouched down and whispered, though he was not sure why. You're safe now. I'll try to help. The dragon gave a faint sound, not a roar but a weak hum, as if it understood him. Surprised, Mark froze for a moment, then shook his head. I must be hearing things. He brought water in a bowl and placed it near the dragon. At first, the creature ignored it, but after a while, its tongue flicked out, tasting the cool liquid. Bit by bit, it began to drink. Mark felt a strange relief, as if the simple act of drinking meant the creature had chosen to keep living. Night came quickly. Mark sat in his chair, unable to sleep, watching the dragon as it lay curled on the floor. Every so often, its eyes would open and meet his again. They were weak eyes, but not empty. Something inside them made him think of old secrets, of forgotten strength waiting to return. For a moment, Mark wondered what kind of story this creature carried. Why was it here, sold like trash in a noisy market? Where had it come from? He did not have answers, only questions. But as he drifted to sleep, one thought echoed in his mind. He had bought the albino dragon as a joke, yet now he could not shake the feeling that his life had changed in a way he did not yet understand. Morning sunlight slipped through the cracked window of Mark's workshop. The soft rays fell across the pale body of the dragon curled on the floor. For a moment, Mark thought the creature had not survived the night. Its chest barely moved, and its wings looked like torn cloth resting on the ground. He leaned closer, heart tight with worry. Then he saw the faint rise and fall of breath. Relief washed over him. The dragon was alive. He filled another bowl with water and set it down. "Come on, drink," he said softly. At first, there was no reaction, but then the dragon's silver eyes blinked open. Slowly, it stretched its long neck toward the bowl. Its tongue dipped into the water, slow but steady. Mark let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. "I guess you still have fight in you," he whispered. The barnacle growths on the dragon's body troubled him. They were thick, ugly clusters clinging to its scales like parasites. Some had cracked during the night, leaving dark marks on the floor. Mark picked up a small tool from his workbench, one he used for cleaning machine parts. He hesitated. "If I try to help, will you let me?" The dragon's gaze met his, unblinking but calm. It did not bare its teeth or try to move away. Taking this as a sign, Mark slowly touched the edge of one barnacle with the tool. The dragon flinched at the contact, letting out a low sound that rumbled in its throat. Mark froze, afraid he had caused harm. But then the creature stilled again, as though giving him permission. With care, he scraped away the barnacle. It cracked and fell free, revealing raw but healthy-looking scales beneath. Mark continued, working slowly, removing one growth at a time. Sweat formed on his forehead as he worked, not from heat but from the pressure of dealing with something so delicate. By the time he stopped, he had cleared only a small patch of the dragon's skin, but the difference was clear. The pale scales shone faintly under the morning light. "There you are," Mark said, almost smiling. "You're not as broken as they thought." The dragon lowered its head and gave a low hum, softer this time, almost peaceful. Mark blinked in surprise. Was it thanking him? He shook the thought away. Dragons were just animals, weren't they? Yet he could not deny the strange feeling that passed between them in that moment. Over the next few days, Mark repeated the routine. He gave water, small scraps of food, and carefully cleaned away more barnacles. The dragon, though weak, began to respond. It lifted its head when Mark entered the room. It shifted its wings, testing them, even though they remained too frail for flight. Most of all, it watched him with those silver eyes that seemed far too knowing. One night, after finishing his repairs on a broken generator, Mark sat near the dragon and spoke aloud. "I don't know why I bought you. Maybe I was bored, maybe I was foolish. Everyone says you're useless. But I don't think that's true. I think you're something else." The dragon tilted its head at his voice. For a heartbeat, Mark thought he saw a faint glow in its scales, as though light pulsed from within. He rubbed his eyes, thinking he was imagining it. But when he looked again, he saw a soft shimmer run across the creature's body before fading away. Mark stared, stunned. What are you? The dragon gave no answer, only rested its head near his chair. Its breath was slow, steady, but warm against his hand when he reached out. Without thinking, he placed his palm on its snout. The touch was cool at first, then he felt a vibration, like a soft hum beneath his skin. His chest tightened as if the creature had spoken, though no words had been said. From that night on, the bond between them grew stronger. The following day, Mark's friend Tom stopped by the workshop. He noticed the dragon lying in the corner and burst into laughter. "Mark, you really bought that thing? I heard about it from the traders. Everyone said you wasted your money." Mark frowned. "It's not a waste." Tom smirked. "It looks half dead. What are you planning to do, teach it tricks?" Ignoring the joke, Mark crossed his arms. "It's getting better. You'll see." Tom shook his head, still amused. "You always had strange ideas, Mark. Don't be surprised when it doesn't live another week." After Tom left, Mark sat beside the dragon again. "They don't see it. But I do. You're more than they know." The dragon's silver eyes blinked, as if agreeing. By the end of the week, the barnacles had lessened, and the creature's strength had improved. It could now lift its wings higher, stretching them across the room. Mark realized just how large the dragon might grow if it fully healed. The thought both thrilled and frightened him. One evening, while he worked on polishing the last of the barnacle scars, the dragon released a sudden burst of energy. Its body glowed faintly, and a ripple of light ran along its wings. The workshop filled with a soft radiance, brighter than any lamp. Mark stumbled back in awe, his heart racing. When the glow faded, the dragon's eyes met his again. This time, Mark was certain he felt a message, not in words but in a quiet presence that touched his mind. He whispered, trembling, "You're not just an animal." The dragon gave a slow, deliberate nod. The days passed slowly, yet each one brought change. The dragon that had once lain silent in the corner now moved with growing energy. Its wings stretched wider every morning, and its body seemed to regain strength with every breath. Mark had cleared most of the barnacles from its skin, and beneath them, bright scales shone like pearl in the sunlight. Mark no longer thought of the dragon as a burden. He had named it Snow, for its white scales that reminded him of the winter storms from Stories of Earth. The name felt right, simple yet fitting. Snow responded to it, lifting its head whenever he spoke. One evening, after finishing his repairs for the day, Mark sat beside Snow with a small plate of food. The dragon accepted the offering more eagerly than before, swallowing pieces of meat and fish with steady gulps. When finished, it turned its silver eyes toward Mark, a quiet gaze that carried more meaning than any words. "You're not ordinary," Mark said. "I don't know what you are, but you're not like the animals people sell in the market." Snow blinked, slow and deliberate. Then, to Mark's astonishment, its body began to glow once more. The light was faint at first, a soft shimmer flowing over its scales. Then it grew stronger, filling the room with a pale radiance. Mark shielded his eyes, heart racing. "Snow, what are you doing?" A hum filled the air, deeper than sound, like a vibration touching the walls and floor. Mark felt it inside his chest, resonating with his heartbeat. His mind swirled with flashes, images that were not his own. He saw dark oceans stretching forever, storms crashing on mountains, and vast skies filled with wings. The images vanished as quickly as they came. Mark gasped, sitting back in shock. His hands trembled. "That was from you." Snow lowered its head, eyes glowing faintly. For a moment, Mark felt certain it had spoken to him, not with words but with memory. He rubbed his forehead, trying to steady himself. "You're showing me your past." Or, someone's past. Snow gave a soft rumble, as if agreeing. The next day, Mark could not focus on his work. His thoughts kept returning to what he had seen. Was Snow truly a dragon from ancient times? Or was it something even more mysterious? When Tom returned, curious to see if the dragon had survived, Mark kept quiet about what had happened. Tom whistled when he saw Snow stretching its wings. "It actually looks stronger. Maybe you're not as crazy as I thought. Still, don't get your hopes up. A sick beast is still a beast." Mark gave no reply. Deep down, he knew Tom was wrong. Snow was not just recovering, it was awakening. That night, Mark sat beside Snow once again. "Show me more," he whispered, unsure if the creature could even hear him. As if in answer, Snow's scales glowed again. The hum filled the air, softer this time. Mark closed his eyes and let the images come. He saw a wide plain under twin moons, where dragons soared in flocks, their wings casting shadows over the land. He saw humans standing beside them, not in fear but in friendship, their hands resting on the dragons' necks. Together, they faced towering machines that marched across the horizon, fire burning in their wake. Mark gasped, opening his eyes. His breath came quick. The vision was gone, yet the meaning remained. Dragons had once fought beside humans. Snow was not a weak creature from a market stall. It was a guardian, perhaps one of the last of its kind. His voice shook. "So that's who you are. You were meant to protect." Snow gave a slow, steady nod, its eyes shining brighter than ever. The following mornings confirmed what Mark had seen. Snow's strength grew faster now. The barnacle scars healed, and the shimmer in its scales became constant, like faint starlight. When Mark touched its head, he no longer felt only warmth but also a calm presence, guiding his thoughts like a steady current. But with Snow's awakening came unease. Neighbors began to notice the glow at night. Some whispered that Mark was hiding something dangerous. Traders who passed by his workshop stared at the dragon with greedy eyes. One afternoon, a stranger at the market stopped Mark. He wore a long coat and spoke in a quiet voice. "I heard you bought a dragon. An albino one. People say it shines at night. Is that true?" Mark's chest tightened. He forced a smile. "It's just a weak creature. Nothing special." The man's eyes narrowed. "Nothing is ever nothing." Then he walked away. Mark hurried back home, troubled. He found Snow waiting, eyes calm but watchful. Sitting down beside it, Mark whispered, "They're starting to notice you. I don't know what that means, but I'll protect you. I promise." Snow lowered its head onto his lap, a gesture of trust. For the first time, Mark felt he was no longer caring for a weak animal. Instead, he was standing at the edge of something greater, a bond that tied them together, and a truth that could change the colony forever. As night fell, Snow's wings stretched wide, glowing brighter than ever before. The room filled with light, and Mark knew the real awakening had only just begun. Snow's glow grew stronger with each passing night. At first, it was only a soft shimmer on its scales, but soon the light filled the entire workshop, spilling out through the windows and drawing curious eyes from neighbors. Mark tried to keep the curtains closed, yet he knew people were whispering about him. Despite the attention, Mark felt closer to Snow than ever. Every evening, he sat beside the dragon, waiting for the hum to begin. And each time, visions followed glimpses of a world long gone. He saw wide fields under alien skies, humans standing proudly beside dragons, and battles fought against strange machines that towered over cities. The visions were not only pictures. They carried feelings: loyalty, sacrifice, courage. Mark felt those emotions deep in his chest, as if they belonged to him as much as they belonged to Snow. One night, after the glow faded, Mark touched the dragon's snout. "You're showing me the past. You want me to understand. But why me?" Snow blinked slowly, silver eyes shining like liquid metal. Mark felt the hum again, not in his ears but in his mind. A single thought formed, clear as sunlight breaking through clouds. "Because you listened." Mark pulled back, startled. "I heard you." Snow lifted its head high, wings stretching against the walls. The glow rippled across its scales. For the first time, Mark knew without doubt this was not a simple creature. It was intelligent, a guardian of something greater than the colony could imagine. The next morning, Mark tried to work as usual, repairing a broken heating unit for a neighbor. But his hands kept shaking. He could not stop thinking about the voice in his head, about the weight of what Snow had shared. When the neighbor left, he sat down, staring at his tools. "What am I supposed to do with this? What do you expect from me?" Snow, resting in the corner, tilted its head. The bond between them pulsed again. Another thought reached him, quieter this time. Not alone. Together. Mark closed his eyes. He had always worked alone, always kept to himself. Now he was no longer just one man. He was part of something larger. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Tom arrived again. He leaned against the doorframe, frowning. "Mark, people are talking. They say your dragon glows at night. Some think it's dangerous. Traders are asking questions. If you're not careful, someone's going to take it from you." Mark stiffened. "No one is taking Snow." "Snow?" Tom raised a brow. "You gave it a name." "Mark, it's still just a beast. You're letting your feelings blind you." Mark shook his head firmly. "You don't understand. Snow is different. It's not what people think." Tom sighed. "You're stubborn as always. Just be careful. The more attention you draw, the worse it'll get." After Tom left, Mark turned to Snow. "He doesn't believe in you. But I do." The dragon shifted closer, resting its head against his shoulder. For a moment, Mark felt warmth spread through him, not just physical warmth but a calm strength, as if Snow was sharing its spirit with him. That night, the visions were stronger than ever. Mark saw humans standing in a circle, their hands joined with dragons. Together they pushed back waves of machines, their unity shining brighter than the fires of war. He heard the roar of dragons mixing with the cries of men, not in fear but in defiance. And he felt a truth sink into him: humanity and dragons were never meant to stand apart. They were partners, bound by trust. When the vision ended, Mark whispered, "That's why you came here. You're searching for that bond again." Snow's silver eyes glowed brighter, and the hum returned. "You are ready." Mark frowned. "Ready for what?" The answer came not as words but as a feeling: responsibility. Snow had chosen him, not by chance but by will. He was no longer simply the boy who bought a dying dragon as a joke. He was the one Snow trusted to restore the bond that had been broken long ago. In the days that followed, Mark trained with Snow in secret. Though the dragon was still recovering, it practiced stretching its wings in the wide fields outside the colony at night. Mark guided it, speaking softly, encouraging every movement. The bond between them grew stronger, their thoughts brushing together like streams flowing into one river. One evening, when Snow managed to lift itself a few feet into the air, Mark felt the rush of wind against his face. His heart soared with it. "You're getting stronger," he said, smiling wide for the first time in years. Snow landed with a thud, folding its wings. Its hum filled his chest again. Stronger together. But their secret could not last forever. Traders had begun to ask more openly about the glowing dragon. Strange faces appeared near Mark's workshop, lingering too long, watching too closely. One even offered him money, far more than he could ever dream of earning. Mark refused, but the offer left him uneasy. That night, he sat beside Snow with worry pressing on his shoulders. "They know. They want you. And if they find out what you really are," Snow's gaze was calm but firm. The hum rose once more, carrying a single thought. "Then we fight." Mark's chest tightened. He had never fought anyone in his life. But as he looked into Snow's glowing eyes, he felt courage stir within him. Perhaps he was not a warrior, but with Snow beside him, he could become something greater. And so, under the quiet stars of the colony night, the boy and the albino dragon made a silent promise. Whatever danger was coming, they would face it together. The colony markets buzzed louder than usual. Traders from other worlds had arrived, and with them came rumors. Some spoke of strange lights in the night sky. Others whispered about an albino dragon living in the settlement, a creature thought to be rare and valuable. Mark heard the whispers each time he passed through town. Every mention of the dragon tightened the knot in his chest. He hurried home each evening, checking the workshop door twice, making sure Snow was safe. But he knew safety would not last. Too many eyes had seen the glow. Too many greedy ears had heard the stories. Snow sensed his worry. At night, when Mark sat in silence, the dragon rested its head against his arm. The hum returned, steady and calm. "Together. Do not fear." But Mark did fear. He was not afraid for himself. He was afraid of losing Snow. One late afternoon, Tom came running to the workshop, face pale. "Mark, you need to hear this. Raiders have landed on the far side of the colony. They're not the usual kind. These ones came asking questions about a glowing dragon." Mark's stomach dropped. "They know." Tom grabbed his shoulder. "You have to hide it. Take it out of here before they come knocking." Snow, lying in the corner, lifted its head and stared at Tom with unblinking silver eyes. Tom flinched, uneasy under the dragon's gaze. "Mark, listen to me. This isn't just gossip anymore. Raiders don't ask politely. They'll take it, and they'll kill anyone who stands in their way." Mark shook his head. "I can't run. Snow is still healing. If I move it now, it won't survive. And I won't leave it behind." Tom cursed under his breath. "Then you'd better prepare, because they're coming." That night, Mark could not sleep. He sat awake, repairing old equipment he had collected over the years. A broken shock rifle. A cracked energy shield. They were barely working, but it was all he had. Snow watched him quietly, its glow faint but steady. Finally, Mark lowered the tools and rubbed his face. "I'm no fighter. I can't stand against raiders. I don't know what to do." Snow rose to its feet, moving closer. Its scales shimmered in the dark, and the hum filled the room. Not alone. Mark met the dragon's eyes and saw no fear in them, only resolve. His chest tightened with a mix of dread and determination. Then we faced them together. The next day, the raiders arrived. Dust clouds rose as their ships landed outside the colony. People rushed to lock their doors, hiding from trouble they knew too well. Raiders were men who took what they wanted, and this time, they wanted snow. 3 of them came to Mark's workshop, dressed in worn armor with blasters at their belts. The leader, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward. "We've heard you're keeping something valuable. An albino dragon. Hand it over, and we'll let you live." Mark stood in the doorway, heart pounding. "There's nothing here for you." The man's eyes narrowed. "Don't lie. We saw the glow last night. It's in there. Step aside." Snow shifted inside the workshop, letting out a low rumble that shook the walls. The raiders stiffened at the sound. The leader smirked. "So it's true." He reached for his blaster. "Last chance, boy." Mark's fear burned away, replaced by something stronger. He stepped forward, blocking the doorway. "Snow stays with me." The leader laughed. "You think you can stop us?" Before Mark could answer, Snow burst from the workshop. Its wings spread wide, glowing bright as stars. The sudden radiance blinded the raiders, forcing them back. With a roar that echoed across the colony, Snow unleashed a gust of wind so strong it knocked the men to the ground. The leader shouted, firing his blaster. The shot struck Snow's scales but bounced off harmlessly, leaving only a spark of light. Snow's eyes blazed, and its roar deepened into something primal. Mark felt the hum inside his chest, stronger than ever, guiding him. He grabbed the broken shock rifle and fired. The weapon sparked, barely working, but enough to drive the raiders back. "Go," he shouted. "You're not taking Snow." The battle spilled into the street. Colonists peeked from their windows, watching in shock as the pale dragon fought beside the young man who had once been called foolish for buying it. The raiders regrouped, their weapons glowing with energy. Snow spread its wings and slammed them to the ground, creating a shockwave that rattled nearby buildings. Mark raised the energy shield, blocking a blast that would have struck the dragon's side. His arms ached under the force, but he did not fall. For the first time in his life, he was not afraid to fight. Snow roared again, its body glowing brighter than ever. Light exploded from its wings, scattering the raiders' weapons as if they were toys. The leader stumbled back, shielding his eyes. This is no beast. It's a weapon." Mark stepped forward, voice firm. "No. Snow is not a weapon. It's a protector." The raiders retreated, scrambling toward their ships. They shouted promises of return, threats of vengeance, but their fear was plain. They had not expected resistance. They had not expected a dragon reborn. When the dust settled, the colony was silent. People slowly emerged from their homes, staring at Mark and Snow standing side by side in the street. The glow around the dragon faded, leaving only the soft shimmer of its scales. Mark's chest heaved with exhaustion, but his eyes were steady. Snow lowered its head beside him, a sign of trust and loyalty. In that moment, the colony saw them not as boy and beast, but as partners. The raiders had been driven away, but Mark knew they would return. And when they did, he and Snow would be ready. The colony was quiet the next morning, but the tension hung in the air like heavy fog. Mark could not stop thinking about the raiders' warning. They would return, and next time, they would not come with just a few men. Snow sensed it too. The dragon moved restlessly, pacing in the workshop, wings brushing against the walls. Its silver eyes followed Mark wherever he went, glowing faintly in the morning light. Mark knew he had to prepare. He spent the day gathering all the tools, weapons, and old machines he could find. Broken blasters, cracked shields, and even an old repair drone were set up around the perimeter of the workshop. It was not much, but it was all he had. Snow watched, head low, listening to every sound, every step. By evening, the sky turned a deep orange, and shadows stretched across the colony. The first ships appeared on the horizon. Mark counted 5, larger than the ones that had come before, and each carried more raiders. His stomach tightened, but he refused to show fear. Snow stepped beside him, wings folding but body tense, ready to strike. Mark touched the dragon's snout gently. "We do this together, okay? We protect our home." The dragon gave a low hum, a vibration that ran through Mark's chest, filling him with courage. He nodded and took his place at the front of the workshop. The raiders landed with a roar of engines. Their boots kicked up dust as they moved toward the colony, weapons raised. The leader from before stepped forward, sneering. "You cannot stop us, boy. That dragon is coming with us, alive or dead." Mark raised his cracked shield. "You will not take it?" Snow spread its wings slowly. The glow returned, brighter than before, casting long shadows across the street. Its roar shook the ground, a deep sound that rattled the raiders' armor. The fight began. Snow launched into the air, wings beating powerfully. A wave of wind knocked the first group of raiders off their feet. Sparks flew as energy blasts bounced harmlessly from its shimmering scales. Mark fired his old shock rifle, aiming at the raiders' equipment. Each shot disrupted their weapons, buying precious moments. The leader yelled orders, but the raiders were disorganized. They had expected a weak dragon, not one so strong, so determined. Snow landed among them with a powerful thud, sending more men tumbling. The dragon's eyes glowed silver, and with each flap of its wings, dust and debris flew like a storm. Mark ran forward, dodging blaster fire, and reached the side of Snow. The hum filled his mind again, and he felt the bond between them stronger than ever. It was not just a dragon protecting him. He was part of its strength, and it was part of his courage. The raiders regrouped, trying to flank them from both sides. Snow roared and leapt into the air, breathing a faint glow of energy that scattered their formation. Mark used the moment to push an old drone forward. It spun and zipped between the raiders' feet, tripping them up, while Snow landed precisely, blocking their path. The leader growled, realizing brute force would not win. "Fall back. Use the other ships." But retreat was not easy. Snow's wings created powerful gusts that overturned vehicles, and its glowing scales blinded the raiders. Mark moved quickly, helping the colonists pull their carts and supplies out of harm's way. Together, they pushed the raiders to the edge of the colony, where the dragon's roar finally forced them back toward their ships. As the dust settled, Mark lowered his shield, chest heaving. Snow landed beside him, wings folding, body glowing faintly from the exertion. The raiders' ships lifted and disappeared over the horizon. The colony was safe for now. People began to step outside, slowly approaching Mark and Snow. Their faces showed awe and gratitude. Children ran to see the dragon up close, and adults whispered about the boy who had protected them all. Mark bent down, brushing a hand along Snow's neck. "You did it," he said, voice soft but filled with pride. "We did it." Snow lowered its head to his shoulder, a sign of trust and loyalty. The hum returned one last time, vibrating through Mark's chest. He realized then that their bond had grown stronger in the fire of battle. He was no longer just a boy with a dragon. He was a guardian alongside a creature born to protect. The colony would remember this day, the day the albino dragon and its human friends stood against those who sought to harm them. But Mark knew this was only the beginning. The raiders would return. And when they did, he and Snow would be ready, stronger and wiser than before. That night, Mark and Snow sat together outside the workshop. The stars shone above them, quiet and steady. Snow rested its head in Mark's lap, and for a moment, everything felt calm. Mark whispered, "You're not alone. And neither am I." The dragon gave a low hum, vibrating in agreement, and the bond between them settled into something unbreakable. They had faced the threat together and had stood strong. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. The colony slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but life had changed for Mark and Snow. No one forgot the night the albino dragon and the boy had faced the raiders. People spoke of them in whispers, in awe, and a new respect had settled over the settlement. Mark walked through the streets, and villagers nodded or bowed slightly. Children ran to see Snow, their eyes wide with wonder, while adults gave cautious smiles, knowing the dragon could defend them again if danger came. Mark and Snow spent their days training together. The dragon's strength grew every day. Its wings were strong and powerful, capable of carrying both of them through the skies. Mark learned to trust Snow's instincts, moving in rhythm with its body, feeling the hum that ran through them both. The bond they shared was no longer simple friendship, it was a connection deeper than either could explain. One afternoon, while practicing in the wide fields outside the colony, Mark noticed something new. Snow's scales glowed brighter than ever, casting light across the plain. When Mark touched its snout, he felt a surge of energy, not dangerous, but alive, like the world itself flowed through the dragon. Snow lifted its wings and, without warning, leapt high into the sky. Mark held on, feeling the rush of wind as they soared above the colony. "Hold on!" Mark shouted, heart pounding with excitement and fear. But the fear quickly melted into wonder. Below them, the colony looked small, peaceful, and alive. He realized that together, they could see and protect the world in a way no one else could. Landing gently, Snow lowered its head, and Mark ran his hands along its glowing scales. "You're incredible," he said softly. "Not just strong, but more than anyone imagined." That night, Mark could not sleep. He sat outside the workshop, looking at the stars. Snow rested beside him, wings folded but body glowing faintly. He thought about the raiders, about the power they had witnessed, and about the bond they had forged. Mark realized that their story was only beginning. Weeks passed, and the colony grew safer. Traders no longer dared approach with ill intentions, and word of the albino dragon spread quietly across nearby settlements. Some came seeking knowledge, others curiosity, but none brought weapons. Snow had become a symbol, not of fear, but of protection. One evening, a young girl approached the workshop. Her eyes were wide with awe. "Are you the boy with the dragon?" she asked, voice trembling. Mark smiled gently. "Yes. This is Snow." The girl reached out carefully. Snow lowered its head, allowing her to touch its smooth, glowing scales. She gasped, feeling the hum under her hand. "It's amazing," she whispered. Mark nodded. "It's more than amazing. It's our friend," and protector. Snow gave a soft rumble, vibrating gently as if in agreement. Mark watched the girl leave, and he realized something important. Snow's power was not just for fighting. It was for inspiring others, for teaching courage, trust, and hope. Days turned into months. Mark and Snow explored the lands beyond the colony. They helped people in need, guided lost travelers, and even discovered ancient ruins where dragons had once lived alongside humans. Each discovery strengthened their bond, and each challenge proved that together, they could overcome anything. One night, sitting on a cliff overlooking the colony, Mark spoke quietly to Snow. "We've come so far. From the moment I bought you as a joke to now, you've changed everything. You've changed me." Snow rested its head against his shoulder, and the hum pulsed softly, like a heartbeat in tune with his own. Mark smiled, feeling the warmth of trust and loyalty. He knew that their story would be remembered, not because of battles or power, but because of the bond they had formed. Years later, the tale of the boy and the albino dragon became legend. Travelers spoke of Snow's glow in the night sky, of the courage of a human who had stood beside it. Children grew up dreaming of dragons and humans working together. The colony prospered, safe under the watch of Mark and Snow. Mark often thought about the day he had bought Snow as a joke. If he had known then what would happen, he might have hesitated. But he would not change a thing. The dragon had not only become his friend but had shown him the meaning of courage, loyalty, and hope. Together, they had faced danger, awakened ancient power, and protected their home. As the stars shone above them, Mark whispered, "No matter what comes, we face it together." Snow's silver eyes gleamed in agreement, wings folding gently around them. The hum vibrated through the air, a quiet promise that they would always stand side by side. In that moment, Mark understood the truth he had felt from the beginning: some bonds are stronger than fear, stronger than danger, stronger than time. And so, the boy and the albino dragon lived on, a legend of courage and friendship, inspiring generations to come. Their story proved that even the most unlikely companions could change the world, not with power alone, but with trust, loyalty, and heart.